Hey guys, good morning. Hey Facebook Live world, happy Wednesday. It's really nice and sunny out this morning. This beautiful light coming in through my reading room window. I'm sitting here enjoying my coffee. And I turned my heater on though. It's a little chilly this morning. Hey Emily. But blue skies, sunshine. Hey Maria, good to see you guys. Hey Rusty and Terry. Welcome friends. Hey Rayanne. So glad you're on. I hope you're doing well in Michigan. Hey Sandy, morning. Lauren. I miss you guys too. I so miss you. It's really true. Yeah, I've been again trying to get outside at least once a day, just so that I don't go so stir crazy. And I would say I'm finding bubbles are a lifesaver for Isla and I. But it's so funny. When it's bad weather, she just can't handle it. She just wants to go out every day. It doesn't matter if it's pouring rain, doesn't matter if it's freezing cold. She'll go and she'll grab, I have this little basket of her shoes in my bench in my entryway, and she'll go and dump the basket over and get her shoes and bring them to me. And that's her way of saying, I want to go out. And she will just stand and whimper at the door unless we go out. So even when it's freezing cold, I seriously bundle her up, winter coat, hat, the whole 9 yards, and we go out and we do bubbles. And she just loves it. So bubbles have been a good outdoor activity for us, but I'm really looking forward to warmer weather when we can put the kiddie pool out, because that'll be her first time trying kiddie pool, a sprinkler. I just think she's gonna love water stuff. So we'll see. Do you guys have any go-to outdoor activities that you've been doing, or anything you're looking forward to doing when the weather gets nicer? Another one of Isla's things is she likes to collect pine cones, and what else does she find? Little acorn shells, little weeds that she thinks are flowers, but they're more like weeds. She goes out and finds those for me and brings them back. The key is just to keep them out of her mouth, right? She wants to eat them, and so I'm trying to explain to her which things she can try and which things she can't, but yeah. So thankful that we are heading toward warmer weather, even if it's rainy. Get out there, do something in the fresh air. It really has made a difference for me. So good morning, Donna and Susan, Deborah, Jan. Hi, Janice. I'm so glad everybody's with us this morning. These are just my favorite. I'm glad that we get to do something that kind of centers us and gets us ready for the day. So I am going to jump in here and we'll pray, and it'll be great. So, Holy Spirit, we welcome you here, God. Jesus, I just thank you for my friends. I thank you for the work that you're doing in their hearts. Thank you that you are so committed to loving us well, and to being with us no matter what. And I pray we would just get a sense of that this morning as we look at your word. In Jesus' name, amen. So we have kind of decided to use this week after Easter to just look at the ways that Jesus showed up to his friends and his disciples after the resurrection, and before he ascends to heaven. And, you can imagine the disciples are deeply hurt. They're confused. They're frustrated. They're trying to figure out really how they're going to put the pieces of their life back together after they watched the crucifixion of Jesus, after they watched him be hung on a cross and die. And so I just want to read to you from Luke 24. This is the Road to Emmaus story. It's kind of long, but hang with me because I think there's some really great encouragement for us in this. And so if you have a Bible with you, you can grab it. This is Luke 24, starting in verse 13. And it says, "The same day, 2 of Jesus' followers were walking to the village of Emmaus, 7 miles from Jerusalem. As they walked along, they were talking about everything that had happened. And as they talked and discussed these things, Jesus himself suddenly came and began walking with them. But God kept them from recognizing him. He asked them, 'What are you discussing so intently as you walk along?' They stopped short, sadness written across their faces. Then one of them, Cleopas, replied, 'You must be the only person in Jerusalem who hasn't heard about all the things that have happened there the last few days.' 'What things?' Jesus asked. 'The things that happened to Jesus, the man of Nazareth,' they said. 'He was a prophet who did powerful miracles, and he was a mighty teacher in the eyes of God and all the people. But our leading priests and other religious leaders handed him over to be condemned to death, and they crucified him. We had hoped he was the Messiah who had come to rescue Israel. This all happened just 3 days ago.' Then some women from our group of his followers were at his tomb early this morning, and they came back with an amazing report. They said his body was missing, and they had seen angels who told them Jesus is alive. Some of our men ran out to see, and sure enough, his body was gone, just as the women had said. Then Jesus said to them, 'You foolish people, you find it so hard to believe all the prophets wrote in the scriptures. Wasn't it clearly predicted that the Messiah would have to suffer all these things before entering his glory?' Then Jesus took them through the writings of Moses and all the prophets, explaining from all the scriptures the things that he had concerned himself. By this time, they were nearing Emmaus and the end of their journey, and Jesus acted as if he was going on, but they begged him, 'Stay the night with us, since it's getting late.' So he went home with them. And as they sat down to eat, he took the bread and he blessed it. Then he broke it and gave it to them. Suddenly their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. And at that moment, he disappeared. They said to each other, 'Didn't our hearts burn within us as he talked with us on the road and explained the scriptures to us?' And within the hour, they were on their way back to Jerusalem. There they found 11 disciples and others who had gathered with them, who said, 'The Lord has really risen.' And he appeared to Peter." So the writing style of the time doesn't really give us, I don't think, the raw emotion of what's going on in this passage. But we can really, I think, imagine that these 2 followers on the road were feeling just this deep grief of the person that they had oriented their life around was gone. And then the story goes on, and we can also imagine that they were probably pretty enthralled by this stranger who joins them on the road. He just comes into their conversation on this walk. And the funny thing is, we know it's Jesus, right? But they don't know it. And I think that is called dramatic irony. I think that's the literary term for that. But this idea when the audience knows something that the actor doesn't. But anyway, they're super engaged in this conversation with this strange man who apparently hasn't heard the news that Jesus died, but does seem to know all about Jesus's life and what his life and his death meant. And so even more than that, we see Jesus here asking questions. Obviously, he knows the answers to these. What are you talking about? Oh, what events? What happened in this place? What happened in Jerusalem? And he is asking them so many questions that they're just so enthralled, and they get to the end of their walk. They're almost home, and they just decide, hey, this conversation is too good to end, so we should invite this guy in. Again, I don't know if I would do that if I just met a random person on the road, but they're like, you should stay with us. It's too dangerous to be out on the road at night. We're already back at our house. Why don't you just come on in and have a meal with us? And so Jesus stays at their house, and they start preparing the dinner, and then Jesus gives thanks for the bread, and he breaks it and he gives it to them. And it's like in that moment, insight comes. They see. They're like, where have I heard this before? Jesus is blessing bread and he's breaking it and he's offering it to us. This is familiar. Where have I heard that? And then the light bulb moment. They get it. They see this amazing stranger for who he really is. And again, the dramatic irony of the story just like makes me go, guys, what do you mean? How can you not see that this is Jesus? How do you miss this? But, I think this is really true for me. Like, I ask that question of myself. How can I miss God so often? God, how can I not see your guidance, your grace, your love, your invitation for me? But we're just like the disciples. And the really cool part about this is that we can help each other see. We can help each other have these aha moments. And I really hadn't considered this passage like this until I read it yesterday, but it really seems like Jesus is giving us this awesome picture of what spiritual friendship means. He's on this encounter on the Emmaus Road with these two men, and he seeks them out, and he asks questions. And he says, I know the trauma that you went through watching Jesus die. And he says, I'm here. I'm with you. I'm going to walk this out with you. Tell me more. Ask me your questions. I want to know how you're struggling. And I just think that is so like Jesus. He really could have come back with a bunch of grandeur in his resurrection. He deserved all the pomp and circumstance that we could ever imagine because he just defeated death. He could have totally rubbed it in everybody's faces who didn't believe. But he doesn't make a scene. He doesn't make a scene at all. Instead, he goes to his friends in a really, really ordinary way on a walk. The left foot, right foot, drudgery, day in, day out, daily grind of life. That is where Jesus shows up and meets them. So I read this story yesterday, and I think what I really love about it is that it seems like it's giving us and me just permission to be okay with the reality that the resurrection, it takes more than a day. It takes more than a day to grasp. It takes more than a few weeks. It takes more than a few years. I think it's going to take us our lifetime, really, to live as if these things are true, to live as if we have hope all the time. So I just want to tell you this morning, if you find yourself struggling and you're thinking, oh man, like Easter was only 3 days ago, and I already have doubt, I'm already asking hard questions, I'm already frustrated and confused, I just feel like God wants to tell you this morning that that's okay. And it does not mean that your faith is weak or faulty. I remember the passage where Paul says, I believe you, but help my unbelief. And that really sounds like a contradicting statement, but I think what he's saying is like, I believe to the extent that I can see. I believe to the extent that I can see Jesus, and I can live in the now and the not yet of the kingdom. But I'm still getting tripped up because I don't fully get it, and I won't fully get it until Jesus comes back and makes everything right again. And so it's probably not hard for you now in the space of the COVID-19 pandemic to identify something in your life that you got deep meaning from that now has been stripped away from you. that was just like what happened to the disciples. And so I think this morning we're invited to think about, just where do you need Jesus to come into your questions? Where in your life do you need God's help to make you able to see, to help you make sense of something that just otherwise makes absolutely no sense? And one more thing I just love about this text is the passage shows us really that when we encounter truth, we often feel it or sense it in a really visceral way in our bodies long before we can actually figure it out or make sense of it. So it was only after the disciples realized, oh my gosh, this is Jesus speaking to me, do they go back and they say, wait a minute, were not our hearts burning with just passion, or just became inflamed when Jesus spoke? Like, they look back and they realize, no, everything he was saying was doing something in me. So it's like looking back in the rear view mirror, we can say, oh yeah, that's where God was. That's what he was doing. And I just think this is a cool picture of the fact that trusting Jesus just comes from experiences like that, these burning moments where we're convinced, where we're just certain and sure that God is real, that his love for us is the thing that is going to anchor our lives. And that comes so much more fully by experience than trying to be convinced of it intellectually. But I am so like this because as much as I feel like I want to say I'm in touch with my emotions, I'm still processing my head. I still get stuck in my head. And I can just easily miss what God is doing because I'm trying to figure it out. When, what I need to do is sit with the emotion long enough to kind of see what questions are bubbling up out of my heart space instead of coming down from my head, if that makes sense. But again, God is so kind because he gives us friends and family that can help us see what we can't see. They can ask us questions. They can draw us out, and we can get to a place where we can finally say, yes, I see God now. I see that God was with me. And this is what I know to be true today. This is the truth I want to stand on. Yes, following you, Jesus, really is worth it. And so this morning, I just think, let's just try it on. Let's just see if we can notice those moments where God does something visceral in our just felt experience, and we can say, yes, this is true. And I hope that you have those moments, even if they happened a long time ago. That's okay. Go back to that place. When you are in a place of questioning and doubt, it's okay to go back to a favorite Bible verse or a moment in your journal or a memory that you had where you're like, I know that God is with me. I know he's true. I know he's good. Just go back to that place. I did this just yesterday. I started feeling really insecure about how I was doing as a pastor, and it was making me pretty anxious, actually. And then I lashed out at Amos about something stupid. It was actually the dishes again, you guys. My goodness, those stupid dishes. Anyway, it wasn't about the dishes. It was about my insecurity. And I was tempted to call a friend and try to process it, but I really felt like God just invited me into silence. And so I sat there and I just waited, and I heard Jesus say, like, Allison, I am not put off by your struggle. I am right there with you in it. And he's like, this is where I do my best work. In the midst of the pain, the frustration, the places where I just drop the ball or can't measure up, that is where God meets us, in our doubt, in our questions, in our confusion. Yeah. I hope that is hopeful for you today. So let's just pray and let's give God a little bit of space this morning. Holy Spirit, would you come? Would you enliven us this morning and enlighten our hearts, God, that we could see you, God, I thank you that you're not hidden, but that we just know we don't see perfectly all the time. We're not great at paying attention. And so we ask for your help this morning. God, I pray that you would bring a specific thing to each of our minds right now where we just need you. We're just desperate. We need you to come in and answer some questions for us, to sit with us in our confusion. So would you do that in this small space even now, God? Jesus, I just pray for the courage for people to look honestly at what they're feeling with you, just knowing that you're right beside them. Yeah, and God, we just accept. We accept that your resurrection didn't happen all at once, and it doesn't happen quickly. For us, the parts of us that feel dead maybe are just going to take some time to wake back up, for you to bring them to life. But I pray that we would stay encouraged, we would stay the course with you. Yeah, we love you, God. You're so, so kind to us. And I just pray you would bless my friends on this journey. Thank you for coming out and meeting us on the road and walking this thing out with us, God. We are truly hopeless without you, but because we have you, we have great, great hope. And I pray that would flood our hearts this morning. I love you, God. Amen. All right, friends. I love you all. I cannot wait to be with you again. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the week, and I hope to see you Sunday for church, if not before then on Zoom, for some life groups or game nights or whatever you want to do. So blessings.